discussion. The mockumentary, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon from 2006. Tagline, Jason Freddy Myers. We all need someone to look up to. Directed by Scott Glosserman, written by Scott Glosserman and David J. Steve. Music by Gordon Hobb. Budget of $250,000 USD. Only made $62,000. It lost money.
Wah, wah.
And that's probably the reason why it's so underrated.
Yeah.
So, unknown. Principal players. We have Kate Miner playing Kelly Curtis. Final girl, quote unquote. Hint, guys, she's not. We'll get to that in a minute. She was in Shameless, The Campaign, with Will Ferrell and, what's his name? The guy who's in Hangover. Little short, Galifianakis.
Yes.
Galifianakis. And then 50 Shades of Black, which is funny because that links it to the Marlon Wayans. So, I mean, you got that whole Scary Movie connection. We have Nathan Basil playing Leslie Vernon, who is a slasher in training and becomes a full-on slasher by the end of the film. He was the producer on every Deadliest Catch.
Oh, shit. I love Deadliest Catch.
Yeah, so he went on to be like just to do producing stuff, but I mean, he couldn't have had a better show because that was like one of the most popular and might still be like, of those true story type shows, like the, and then Invasion, the TV series. We have Angela Goethals, or Gethels or whatever, playing Taylor Gentry, who's the documentarian. She is our final girl, folks, and we'll get into that. She was the girl in Home Alone that just gives my favorite scene, Les Incompetents.
Oh, God.
She was Kevin's older sister that hated his guts, and she was also in Jerry Maguire. It's funny because my wife doesn't recognize actors or actresses from anything, and as soon as she saw that actress, she's like, is she the girl from Home Alone? I'm like, how the hell did you know that?
I would not have remembered that.
Robert Englund is in this, plays Doc Halloran, who's the Dr. Loomis Van Helsing archetype in this film.
He really is.
We have Scott Wilson, who plays Eugene in this movie, who's a retired slasher. Which slasher do you think he was supposed to have been?
I saw an article on him. It was, a Silent Night? Which
You're
one?
Close, though. Black Christmas.
Black Christmas, yes.
He
was
the Billy in that movie. I love that reference. Like that is one of my favorite things about this movie because it so much loves the genre that it throws back and ties in stuff like that. And the fact that Billy was never caught, and they bring back Scott Wilson, and they even talk about in the movie. I mean, they don't really give you a vibe, but he says back whenever I was operating in the late 60s, early 70s, which is exactly when Black Christmas was happening, he said the game was different. We didn't have, we was one and done. We didn't come back like these new guys do. You know? Of course, he played Herschel in The Walking Dead, in Cold Blood, The Exorcist 3. He was the doctor in that one, and The Ninth Configuration. We have Bridget Newton playing Jamie, who's married to Eugene.
She's a hot older lady.
She is. and Leslie even mentions it,
Yeah.
That scene, he's like, and she's really, and he's like, and then she pops up and he stops what she's saying or whatever, but you can tell he's trying to say that she's really hot.
Yeah.
Ben Pace plays Doug Johnson, one of the documentary crew. Zelda Rubinstein plays Mrs. Collinwood, who's the local librarian and Doom Prophet in the movie. And she's obviously from Poltergeist. Walk toward the light, Carol Ann. Anthony Forsyth plays Pete. He's uncredited as Lauren's boyfriend. T.O. Gomez plays Stoner number 1. Matt Boat plays Stoner number 2. Britton Spellings plays Todd Best, the cameraman and the martyr. He's the chunky boy in the movie.
Chunky boy.
Chrissy Carlson plays Lauren, the friend to Kate, and I say that in quotation marks because they seem more like frenemies than they do friends. She's also the hoe. And Hart Turner, who plays Shane, who is Kelly's boyfriend. Synopsis: Leslie Vernon is a local legend among the folks of Glen Echo. They tell stories about the troubled child and the horrible death that befell him. But Leslie didn't die. Now he plans on capitalizing on his fame by joining the ranks of those illustrious slashers that have gone before him, Jason, Freddy, and Michael. With the help of a documentary crew, a retired pro, and a well-meaning Ahab, Leslie Vernon might just be the next name in horror.
He's aiming for it.
Yeah, he's working for that title. Body count 10, which is respectable, counted at least, 11 uncounted. We have Mrs. Collinwood, who's killed with a hand scythe. Michael, who's killed off screen by Leslie. Julie, who's killed off screen by Leslie. Peter, presumably stabbed through the back with a pitchfork.
Yeek.
Stoner number 1, stabbed in the back with a hand scythe. Stoner number 2 has his heart ripped out with a post hole digger.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. Kelly Curtis fell to death from the second-story window. That's her own fault, nobody else's. But Leslie did set it up, which is pretty funny. Cameraman Todd has his neck broken just off screen. Bye-bye, Chunky Boy. Lauren killed with a hand scythe. Shane is hanged. And then uncounted Leslie Vernon, because if you watch through the end credits, folks, he is in the morgue and he rises from the dead, even though he's been burnt to death.
Oh, my God. I loved his description of the fucking stoners as you were just talking about their deaths, by the way.
I love the whole thing with him, because he's interesting, because prior to his turn, which we'll get to, because I don't think you couldn't make it to that, and it's understandable. But prior to his turn, he's almost a likable guy in this movie.
He is. Well, and he's likable because it's weird because he discusses the things that we discuss.
Yeah, and he's so passionate about it too. He's like, because he's sitting there and and she's going on about his books in the one scene, and he said, I wouldn't recommend reading Grey's Anatomy all the way through, but you kind of have to if you're an art, part of the trade. But then he geeks out and he's like, but these are the cool things, and it's like Harry Houdini, how to escape, certain situations, and him and him marking out, because that scene at the beginning of it where he takes them to the college, and he's telling them how that he tracks, he spots his prey, and he finds the one girl, and then and she actually she looks their way, realizing that he's out there watching her, and he's like, did you see that? Did you catch that? She sensed me. We sensed each other,
He is. It's funny because he's also he's very passionate about it, but he's also nonchalant about things. And I think it's both the passion and that makes this so good, because, again, going back to the stoners where he's just like, oh, well, they're good for padding numbers.
Yeah. He mentions how you gotta have the stoners because they can't run, because they've smoked their lungs up to the point where they can't run, and they're gonna be high anyways. They're good for padding out your numbers.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Let's see. As far as quotes goes, we have Jamie saying, I'll tell you, never hang out with a virgin. You got a virgin in your crew, either get somebody in her pants or get the hell away from her. And Eugene says, aside from that, the simple answer is run like a motherfucker and don't stop till the sun comes up.
True story.
And those are both very good points in a horror film. Doug Johnson, what kind of survivor girl passes out in a pinch? That's later on. I don't think you saw that part.
Yeah, I didn't.
Todd Best passes out. What kind of survival girl hops on a nerdy kid's Johnson like it's a pogo stick? And Leslie Vernon, it is going to get wet in here tonight. Lace your boots up, kiddies. So visually, what do you think about this movie?
Visually, it looked great because it looked like an actual documentary.
That's what I was going to say. Normally, we talk about in these movies how the flat lighting works against the movie because it makes it look cheap. This movie was supposed to be a documentary, and which has flat lighting, so that perfectly fits the movie.
Although I'm going to say that it did confuse me when it went a little cinematic in its view, and so that kind of threw me off.
It went cinematic whenever it was moving outside of when the and it did it in an interesting way, which actually tied into the story. It lost the documentary look and went to cinematic look during the scenes where the camera crew was losing control of the situation.
Okay, that made sense. Yeah.
Because the scene in the library is a big one, because it suddenly, whenever it goes to Zelda Rubinstein doing the Doom Prophet thing, where she's telling the story of Leslie Vernon. It's very vibrant. It's got it's almost like they're in a library, but for some reason it gives you those vibes of being by a campfire or a mantle or something, or fireplace, because like the lights are longer, the shadows are longer, the lights are more like, golden orange colored, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They do the same thing at the end of the movie, which is the part you missed, whenever there's a turn toward the end of the movie. So here's how the story ends, because I know you missed this part.
I'm excited.
So you saw the scene where Leslie was explaining how he was going to set up the kills, right? Did you get that far? So, and then there's that whole good scene where he's like crying. He's so happy with what he's got planned. And then like he actually gets Taylor, to hold his hand or whatever with him. Did you see that?
I don't know if I did, but they had a lot of moments. Like they had a hug after their first successful, I don't know, something that he did. I completely forgot. But like they would celebrate small accomplishments.
Yeah, she sees him crying and like he's so overcome with emotion, and she like offers her hand, and like he takes it, and it's a good moment between them, which is weird when I get to what happens. So anyways, so he's in the middle of starting his kills up. They're near the attic. They're near the part where he told her that he was going to kill the two people who were screwing, the ones that go up there first to screw. He moves in there to kill them, and then she leaves, or she starts having a crisis of conscience at this point. And she's like, I can't film this. I can't do this. And Leslie comes back in there after he's killed him. He's like, listen, he said, I'm afraid this was going to happen. He said, just get the fuck out now. He's like, and then he kind of changes his demeanor toward her. He stops being as friendly toward her or the camera crew for a split second. I'll get to that in a second. But anyways, and he tells him, he's like, I can't have you mess this up. This is too important. He's like, if you can't, just film this and be unbiased about it, then just go. He's like, that's all. That just leave. And so she's out there, and he meets up with them for before they leave, and he actually has a nice moment with everybody. He hugs her again, thanks her for being there. He fist bumps the two camera guys, and they're like, and they're praising him, saying, you're so cool, Leslie, and he puts on the mask, and he's all serious, and he goes back toward the house. But he tells them they've got to get out of there because they can't intervene. And that's whenever she starts convincing him. She's like, guys, we can't do this. These are innocent kids. We've got to do something. And so she ropes the two camera guys into coming in and interfering with Leslie's plans. And she thinks, because she knows how he's doing everything, that she's going to, be able to outwit him, because she can tell the kids what's happening. Here's the twist. She realizes partway through, like watching these kids get massacred by Leslie, that the final girl, who they find fucking a guy, first of all, she slipped off and she's fucking her boyfriend, which, proves that right there she's not the final girl. Then she passes out whenever they tell her that when Taylor tells her, she's like, you're the final girl. You've got to be the strong one. That's your whole role. You're the survivor girl. That's what they call them in this movie, survivor girl.
Yeah.
It's like, you're the one to lead us out of this. She passes out because she can't take the stress of it.
Not the final girl.
And then she's upstairs after Leslie has made the comment that anybody upstairs will never be able to swing off the roof using the branches, because he has cut into them and made sure that the only ones there are weak and will break and cause the person to have a problem whenever they try to.
Yeah.
She deliberately goes out there despite them screaming at her. The branch breaks immediately. She falls down, snaps her neck. She's gone. Like, she's completely removed from the movie.
Yeah.
Taylor realizes when they are chased to the barn, and everything else pretty much goes like he says, that she is the final girl. And then they all look at her, the ones that are surviving. Todd's already sacrificed himself. He goes out there. He agrees to try to save Taylor. And the other camera guy, he's like, let me just get Leslie away from you. I can reason with him because they had a good relationship prior, but Leslie's in full-on slasher mode.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't listen to Todd. He just takes him out, snaps his neck, done with him. They're all in the barn, the rafters of the barn, after, he told her that he was going to take the one girl, like grab her and like flip her up there and take her out, and then the boyfriend would come up there and he would hang him. That doesn't happen just yet, but they're all up there in the rafters, and Taylor's like, oh my God, I'm the final girl. And they're looking at her like, what the fuck are you talking about? The other camera guy. And he's like, you can't be the final girl. You're not a virgin. And she just gives him a look and hides her face. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, Leslie set this all up. He knew I was, because, he says that he can sense virgins, that's one of their, abilities of a slasher. And, he set up throughout the entire movie that he actually, they set up this nice thing in the movie where he discusses how a slasher, its whole goal is to take the woman and empower her. Like, it's almost like they love the woman enough to through the trauma to make them better people, is the way he establishes it, especially when he's talking to Eugene and that whole thing. Well, he has this entire movie had her in on his killings with the intention, knowing that she was a virgin, that she had too good of a conscience to stand by and allow him to do what he was doing, that she would stand up and become the final girl.
Oh,
so he
God.
is so brilliant. He has let her in on it and still turned her into the final girl without her even realizing that she's being manipulated that way.
Oh, shit.
So everybody else continuously gets killed, just like he said. The other camera guy provides a distraction long enough to basically he actually at that point, because that camera guy knocks out Doc Halloran, there's that whole thing where the Ahab will show up and he'll get stabbed. Well, they knock Doc Halloran out, and it looks like he's just going to be taken out of the movie. But whenever it comes down to Taylor and the other camera guy being the only two left, all the kids are dead. They've done their stupidity, just like Leslie said they would. He's standing there and he's going to be the final sacrifice. Doc Halloran shows back up again, gets stabbed just like Leslie said he would. And then, of course, the final camera gets taken out, and it's just her left. She does exactly what he says that the final girl would do. She goes and she grabs an axe, although she does grab one from the back of the barn or the shed, because he told her that all the ones in front would be damaged in some way. Joke's on her, though. He also damaged the ones in the back. So even with that, she's still got a faulty weapon. And there's that whole scene that's really good between them, because he's explaining the phallic symbol nature of it, about how she's grabbing his manhood.
Oh, my God.
Because all the weapons, have that phallic symbol appearance about them, which is actually something that's been discussed in theories
and they're
about
damaged.
slasher movies.
No, I'm just kidding.
But anyway, she grabs an axe and she goes out into the grove, the apple grove, just like he said she would. It's brilliantly lit. It's actually spooky. The lights are really well done. It's all cinematic, just like we said. It's switched at this point. And she attacks him at one point when he comes up on her. He buries the axe head into his chest, but whenever she's looking around trying to figure out what to do, she throws the handle at first, but then decides that it's stupid. She might as well have something in case he gets back up, because she knows how this is going to go. And when she does, and she looks around, he's gone. She goes to the actual cider house, just like he said she would, and she ends up pulling a maneuver. I think was actually taken from Friday Part 3. She takes one of these hook pulleys or whatever that's in there, swings it at him, knocks him over, and then wrestles with him for a bit until she can shove his head into the cider press, and then she cranks it down and crushes his skull, and then sets fire to the place. And it's her, and Doc Halloran's still alive. He was gutted, but he's still alive, so he's still around, like Dr. Loomis. And then Todd is somehow not been fully taken out either. I mean, it looks like he was grazed, but he wasn't fully killed. And it's the three of them, and she's obviously traumatized, and she says surely it's over and that sort of thing. And that's when it cuts to the end credits where there's a guy at the morgue working through his notes, and he doesn't notice after he wheels out Leslie's corpse that it rises back up at the end.
Bet you thought.
But that's how the movie. So that's the thing that I love about the movie, is that she was always the final girl, and he had her in on it the entire fucking time.
That's badass, because I was not thinking that. I was thinking that she was going to get suckered into being a killer with him.
Yeah, and that's the way that it seems like it's going in the movie, and that's and this is a spoiler for our Death Holler Awards, but she's probably one of my favorite final girls, because she's got a great relationship with the slasher up into that point, and then they're almost friends, and then he still manipulates her, and he still gets that part out of her, and she does exactly what a good final girl or survivor girl does. She stands up to him, she outwits him, and in the end she triumphs over him.
Damn,
it's a good movie. Shame it didn't get more press at the time that it came out, but I think slashers were kind of on the outs whenever this movie came out. So it was, and it being a meta commentary, it kind of hurt it too.
I guess so. It's definitely one of those underrated, holy crap. Cause I was not wanting to watch this film at all. And then when I got to watching it, I was like, oh my God. I guess cause it's also a comedy. So like you get so many fucking laughs out of it. You definitely root for the killer at a lot of points, you know. And he's just so weird. Like he's so enthusiastic sometimes, and then he gets, you know, super serious, or he has just enough. I don't know. You could definitely tell he's got a little bit of maybe possibly schizophrenia, bipolar. I don't know.
And that's one thing I'll give him is, I mean, skipping ahead to talking about the movie because we discussed the story, obviously. So that's out there. The acting of it, that actor they got to play with Leslie Vernon, he can turn on a dime. Like, he's so likable in those scenes, but then whenever he turns serious, like, he's scary. Like, you know.
Oh, he did a great job for sure.
Like that scene where, I mean, the part I know you've seen where he catches the fact, he told her, he's like, don't you ever talk to, you know, the one that he claims is the final girl.
Yeah.
And then whenever he finds out that she has, like, he gets fucking.
Oh, yeah. She almost ruined his fucking plans.
Yeah, just super pissed off. And because the Ahab, you know, Doc Halloran, like actually like senses something, and that's another hint in the movie that's subtle. He senses that she's the virgin too, because like within that crowd at the diner, his eyes are drawn to her. Like, I mean, I know he's seen her previously, and he's got questions about that, but he's also, it's almost like that protective, like, this is the Laurie Strode. I've got to have like some kind of association with this person.
Yeah.
And the actress they got, I mean, the one from Home Alone, she does a good part, I feel like, for, you know, that, you know, being almost on his side, but then at the later when she has to turn on him, she does it convincingly.
Yeah.
What'd you feel about Eugene as far as an actor, like the guy who plays Herschel, or, you know, the Herschel's actor or whatever, Scott? What'd you feel about him?
What was his full purpose? Was he a mentor?
He's a mentor. He's the one teaching Leslie the tricks of the trade.
Okay, I got that because I was like, okay, is this guy a fucking serial killer teaching him how to be a serial killer?
Yeah, that's exactly what his purpose is.
I was like, am I getting this right? Like, I couldn't believe it. It was just funny because Eugene was just so, I don't know, like a kind of a positive guy. I mean, he's clearly happy with his wife. Did his wife know? What am I missing?
She knew everything. And she has discussions with Taylor in front of her, and she's asking Leslie how it's going with the final girl, if he's established a connection yet.
Yeah, I thought they just knew because of the documentary.
But no, she's fully on board, and like I feel like there's a lot in the movie where like her and Eugene are talking, and it's like he says something to the effect of like the final girl always gets away, and then she turns around and says not all of them, and then she smiles and like, you know, kind of kisses him on the cheek to hint that she was his final girl, but she fell in love with him in a weird way. Like,
yeah,
you know.
I don't know. I don't know. The whole situation was pretty funny. I mean, like, they just have this happy couple married life. Like I said, she's fucking hot, and Herschel's Herschel, you know, and even like the butt slap that he gives her and everything, you know.
Yeah, and she's totally into him.
Oh, yeah.
And like he's, you know, and he's like, you know, he's helpful around the house. Like he's, you know, like a good husband to her. Like it's a really strange situation knowing he's a killer, you know, and in particular the killer from Black Christmas, which is one of the most misogynistic, you know, woman haters of all the ones we've covered, because like he deliberately went after women, you know, that was his main thing. It almost makes you wonder if she's supposed to be like well, it almost makes you wonder if she's that character that was the survivor, maybe final girl to die in Black Christmas, the one that laid on the bed, you know, the one that was that was pregnant or whatever. It almost makes you wonder if that's who that was supposed to be. Like she somehow, like, you know, through the trauma or whatever, had like Nightingale syndrome and like, or, you know, or whatever it is, where or Stockholm syndrome, where she's like, you know, just got, I don't know, like her fell in love with her attacker or whatever.
I guess so, because she was definitely into him. That's the whole situation. Like, I was having a hard time understanding or computing what I was watching, because I'm like, is this really fucking happening? And also, by the way, the movie felt real too.
Yeah, I mean, there was parts of it, and one thing that I loved about it is, and I've got it in the trivia, I think I've got most of them in there. There is so many references to other horror films in this. Like it really, like in the background especially, the fact that Leslie's real name, it's revealed that it's not actually Leslie Vernon, that he's trying to take that persona of that dead, child or whatever on so that his name's Leslie Mancuso. And the fact that that's the name of the producer for all of Friday the 13th is hilarious,
Yeah.
And there's stuff like that throughout the film. It's just that's constantly in the movies. Music is serviceable. I mean, it's a documentary, so there's not a lot in it, I don't feel like. But when it needs to be in the cinematic portions, it does its job.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Doesn't stand out
as well as April Fool's Day at all, though.
Yeah, it doesn't, but it's appropriate enough. I think the movie's interesting enough, so interesting, or at least it captivates you enough that you don't really care about any music that may or may not be playing.
I agree with that. Like the actors are selling the roles well enough, and then the story itself, like the twist on the whole, like slasher genre is enough to keep you invested in it without all that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about it before I move on to trivia? I know that you missed that last part, but I'd recommend you go back and watch it because I just love that turn that when she realizes that she's the final girl.
I'm absolutely going to go watch it now. Just for anyone listening that is like, whoa, he just spoiled the movie for me. I fucking love spoilers. For certain things, like sometimes I'll be good and I will save myself, for instance, reviews. A lot of the reviews we've done, movies I've seen for the first time, which is great. I think especially for the podcast. But in other things, I guess you would say more pop culture type references, I don't care if I get spoiled or not. I won't get mad. You're not going to see me pissed off about it. Sometimes I'll look for them. Rarely if I get them, usually I just don't get upset. I rarely go look for them though.
The only ones I mind personally are the whodunits or ones where there's like something that's in the movie that if it was spoiled, it kind of ruins. Like, I mean, for instance, the what a twist, the M. Night Shyamalan ding dong of it all. Like if you reveal that ending to Sixth Sense, you've ruined the movie.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I mean, because you don't get that thrill at the end of that movie of like just the like the electricity shooting up your spine. When you're like, oh my God, he's dead.
That's true.
That whole thing.
It blew me away. Had I not watched, I guess maybe the thing with me is that if I chose not to watch the movie for that long, that's my fault. Like if I had never watched The Sixth Sense when it came out, because I had seen it in the theaters, and you and I are talking about it, and I find out, oh my God, this is the killer, or not the killer, excuse me, this person's actually not alive, I would have been like, what? But I wouldn't have been mad, I would have been like, oh, well, that's cool. I still would have watched it,
And also, there's probably people out there mad that we spoiled that because it's not, and that's not what we're discussing. Come on, folks. The Sixth Sense. I don't know how you've not been spoiled on that movie by now. Like they make fun of it in other movies, so the context alone. I mean, they make fun of it in Scary Movie. That's one of the parodies in that movie.
Yeah.
Because because Shorty's like all smoked up to the point he's like, shit, dog, I see dead people. It's. I mean, that's the whole thing of the movie.
Yeah. So I don't mind a spoiler. I am going to go back and watch this. This movie is one of those movies that I had not heard about it until you told me about it. I thought it was going to be like some 1978 type fucking film that you usually make me watch. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. It was not that at all. And it's one of those movies that you have to watch it. You have to give it. I haven't given it the full chance that it deserves because, I've been busy and I'm a little tired. That's fine. But when I get through that and I get the chance to finish this movie, yeah, it's going to be well-deserved and definitely wanted because I'm like, holy crap, this movie is not at all what I expected.
That's the reason I fell in love with it because I heard a lot of people recommend it and I didn't know what the twist was to it. I just knew it was a documentary about that or in that sort of vein. And I mean, that's all you really need to know to kind of get the gist of the movie. But like I started watching it and I was like, holy shit. Like I like what they're, the commentary. And then at the end with that twist, I'm like, yeah, this movie's good. I really like this, But yeah, I highly recommend it. I underrated. I think I've got it in the notes about why it failed at the box office. But like, it's one of those things where I feel like more people should go back and visit it. And they did make either a prequel or a sequel comic about it because that was one of the things that the writers they liked what they wrote and everybody appreciated what they wrote, so they decided to continue the story even if they couldn't do it in a movie form and like a comic book form. So there is a comic book out there that continues this a little bit.
Yeah, I thought I saw something about Before the Mask.
I think it might be a prequel or something.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to have as many references or more as like the movie actually has. So.
Yeah.
Ready for the final trivia of the evening?
Yes, I'm ready.
At the beginning, Taylor is standing in front of the Red Rabbit pub. This is a reference to the Red Rabbit matchbook found by Dr. Loomis in the Halloween movie in 1978.
Oh,
yeah. The first time Taylor interviews Eugene and his wife, a lament configuration puzzle box from Hellraiser can be seen sitting on the table.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering what that was.
This is Zelda Rubinstein's last movie.
Oh, shit.
When Leslie and the graduate students are scoping out potential victims at the school, he makes eye contact with a young woman. As this happens, the three girls can be spotted playing jump rope in the background.
Oh, yeah.
They're in white dresses. This is obviously a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
Because it's straight up from it.
Yeah, I saw that.
When Leslie first shows the crew his home, he introduces his two pet turtles as Church and Zoe. These are the names of the resurrected pets from Pet Sematary.
Okay, I remember Church. Who was Zoe?
The dog from part 2.
Oh, I loved that dog. It looked like a wolf.
That poor dog is in part 2, and I want to say it's not a Saint Bernard, but it's like a Rottweiler or something like that. It's a large dog in part 2.
I thought it was like almost like a husky of sorts, almost like a wolf.
Yeah, it might be like, but it's a larger size breed.
Okay,
I remember that from.
Break my heart right now. I have lost memory of what happened to that dog. I watched that movie too. I've watched that movie multiple times.
That's got a weird connection to John Wick 4 because Clancy Brown, the great Clancy Brown, who's Mr. Crab, or whatever, or Mr. Krabby or whatever. He's in John Wick 4 and he plays a great character in that, but he's also the main bad guy in Pet Sematary 2 because he's that abusive stepdad who ends up killing the dog. So
okay. Yeah, I thought so. I just didn't remember, but I remember him holding his dog. I was like, I was mortified.
When Leslie first takes Taylor and her crew to meet Eugene and his wife, the car parked in Eugene's driveway is the same color, make, and model as the car seen in director Sam Raimi's movies.
Wait, what? Say that again? So
whenever Leslie first takes Taylor and the crew to meet Eugene and his wife, there's a car in Eugene's driveway. It's the Sam Raimi car, the one that Sam Raimi's like piece of shit that Ash always has in all the Evil Dead movies.
Yes. Okay. No, I recognize that.
Doc Halloran is a mashup of Danny Torrance's nickname Doc in The Shining and Dick Halloran's name from from that same movie.
I was wondering. I was like, why do I recognize his name?
The character Kelly Curtis is a reference to Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, who happens to have a sister named Kelly Curtis.
Good Lord.
Leslie's real surname, like I said, is Mancuso, which is the producer of the Friday the 13th movies. It's the uncredited actor who... this could also be a nod to Nick Mancuso, who's the uncredited actor who portrayed Billy in the original Black Christmas movie.
Yeah.
So they got double references in on that whole thing, which is pretty good. Zelda Rubinstein used her signature voice from Poltergeist while telling the legend of Leslie Vernon to the girl in the library. When Leslie is applying the makeup while being interviewed about his target, the song playing in the background is the same as that heard at the end of The Shining. I do remember that, where Jack Torrance appears in the photo Midnight, the Stars of Muse, sung by Al Bowley and Ray Noble from 1934. He's sitting there and he's putting the makeup on. It's that old-timey Shining music that's playing in the background.
I remember.
When Taylor is interviewing Leslie in the shed before the night the murders take place, her mittens have the same moose pattern as Kevin McAllister's hat in Home Alone.
Oh, wow.
That's a good meta reference for the actress. The town in which the movie is set, Glen Echo, is based in a real neighborhood of Montgomery County, Maryland, near where writer and director Scott Glosserman grew up. A notable feature of the area having a turn-of-the-century amusement park that stood mostly abandoned for several centuries as it deteriorated and earning a fitting haunted reputation among the locals. The carousel for which the park is known is referenced in the Glen Echo Entertainment's production logo that you can see at the beginning of the film. Funny thing is, right across from where this movie was filmed is where Blair Witch Project was filmed. It was the same area exactly.
Oh, wow.
Although it's never explicitly mentioned in the film, Eugene is intended to be an older version of Billy from Black Christmas. And Kane Hodder, who played Jason Voorhees in 4 of the Friday the 13th Jason movies, is seen walking in the 428 Elm Street.
Yeah.
This was the address in which Nancy lived in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. The house was the house, wasn't it? Or was it not?
Yes. I think it was the exact house. And it's funny. I love that part of the movie because he's going back and he's talking about the previous ones. You see Camp Crystal Lake with the sign.
Yeah.
It's frozen over at the time, but the signs fell over because of disuse. You see Springwood. They mentioned Springwood, Ohio, and the Elm Street, and then they show the town from Halloween or whatever, and they show like this family that's like happens to be inside because it's Halloween and they're scared to death to be outside, and they see the camera crew out, kind of looking through the windows, and they go up and they immediately close the blinds.
Oh my God! Yeah, so many references.
What was you going to say?
I said so many references.
It's so good that way. Like it references so many things and like ties. And he even mentions Chucky at one point too, like, in the movie. So he even throws that other slasher in on it. Death Holler Awards. Kelly Curtis is not the final girl. Throw her right out. She's a terrible final girl because she's not a virgin. She fucks right before she dies.
Yeah.
She's not a leader of any way, shape, or form. And she's kind of a shitty person because when you watch that, you'll notice when the stuff starts going down, she's throwing out blame left and right. She's like, she's a terrible person. Like the opposite of what a final girl really is.
And it's funny because they made her look so like kind of sweet and innocent,
Yeah, and then all the scenes leading up to it, she's a traditional like, oh my God, did my family have links to Leslie's? Did my uncle like rape his, whatever? Because that's the whole setup for the movie that Leslie puts out there. He puts that little fake flyer out that like her uncle was the one that molested his mother and caused him to be born, and that's the reason his father hated him was because he knew that he wasn't his child or whatever. That was the backstory. But Taylor, on the other hand, Taylor Gentry she's one of the best final girls that we've had, period, because you get the interaction with the killer, which I absolutely love in this movie. She's actually weirdly like sympathetic toward him in a lot of the movie. And then whenever she has to turn on him, she goes in the full on, like just every bit of the character. And Leslie, it's almost like he's happy in that scene. That's the thing I love about it. In the scene in the cider press, when she's crushing his skull, he's almost got a smile on his face, knowing that he brought the true version of her out.
Fucking weirdo.
So when you watch that, you can kind of come back later and just kind of give me your rankings on her as a final girl. But I love her. Like, she's great.
Yeah.
That's the reason I tagged you in Facebook on that post. It said underrated final girls, which I didn't think about it. But the one from Your Next is actually a final girl, even though they're not supernatural killers in that movie. It's more of a home invasion movie, but she still is a final girl.
The only one I recognized was the one from, what do you call it? Why can't I think of it right now? The one with Art the Clown.
Oh yeah, Terrifier.
Yeah,
she's a great one too. Like, I love that new final girl from that movie. Mm-hmm. They had her, and then I want to say they had the one from Barbarian in it, like in that one, or maybe
I don't remember if I saw her
one.
For sure or not.
But no, the one that was in the upright corner was the one from Your Next, and that's a good movie. But I almost feel like it straddles the line. It's got slasher qualities, but it's human horror, and I almost want to save it for human horror season because it's such a good movie,
Yeah. I only see Girl from Terrifier and the girl from this movie, and I don't recognize the other two.
But yeah, well, the one, like I said, up in the upper right corner is the one from Your Next, and but for sure Taylor. I mean, because the whole point of that post was it said underrated final girls,
yeah.
And like Taylor's definitely, up there. Like, she's one of the better ones, and like nobody even knows about her. What do you think about Leslie as a slasher?
He's a genius. He's a genius.
He is. There's so many ways in this movie that like he shows he's a genius. Like I love that scene of him working out, and he talks about how important cardio is.
Yeah.
He's like, well, he's like, you can't be like, out there out of breath, like trying to sneak up on these people. And he's like, and you've got to like, they're running like at a full sprint. And he said, you've got to be walking, but still keep up with them. He's like, that takes a lot of cardio to do.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so funny because like he has so many good points and you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, he's right. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, Raina, that is not right. That is bad.
And he, when him and Eugene are talking about like just how like, because Eugene, like, because Taylor brings it up, she's like, why do you have to do these things? And like, and Eugene's like, why is she asking this question? Like, has she not got, and he's like, no, she's new. Won't you explain it to her since you're the old timer? And he's like, and he basically, they almost like glamorize the slasher, saying it's like, saying that for good to truly exist, there needs to be an evil to offset it and make it shine brighter by the fact that it exists. And it's like they're, saying that they're actually making the world better because they're making the good people like tougher and stand out more because and it's like and they're almost good enough in their description. It's like you're buying it for a second. It's like, yeah, and it's like, no, what the fuck are you doing to me right now? You're killing people. Shut up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm with you. Like he's so likable in some of these scenes too. And it's like, you don't want to like him, but like, just like the camera crew, he's nice and, outgoing. And I mean, that's all that stuff.
It almost feels just like, okay, cause you're watching it and you're like, oh, well, this is just somebody that's enthused about the slasher genre in general. He's a good person. He's not a good person.
He's absolutely not, especially whenever they reveal like the reason that Doc Halloran is like or Halloran, however you want to pronounce it, is like actually it was actually his psychiatrist. And he and going back to what you were talking about, how smart he was, like she mentions like, why is he not just taking you out? And he's like, oh, because he said I set it up to where it looked like he overstepped his bound as a psychiatrist, and I've got like a restraining order against him. He can't get around me.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, this guy's thought everything through, So I think he'd probably go down as the smartest slasher that we'll ever get to cover, because like he's just got all the angles covered, like every time that he does what he does.
Yeah.
Best kill, post hole digger.
Oh yeah,
ripping out the heart.
I don't know. I didn't see all, but I did, and I'm trying to think if I saw that one because I was looking up something. I forgot what I was looking up, and I saw that kill specifically, but I can't remember in my stupor. I don't think I saw it on watching the movie. I think I saw it in something I was looking up, which I found some trivia, and I think you might have gone over it already though. When I had seen that, anyways, yes, that was the best one for me.
And he not only rips the guy's heart out, but he hands it back to him and lets him hold it before he dies.
Oh,
it's having his head in the cider press is a cool way for the slasher to die. So I give him credit for that. Best scream in the movie is Lauren. She's also the best boobs in the movie. Remember, she's the hoe. She's the one that goes down into the lights go out because Leslie had it set up and the breaker box is in the cellar or whatever. So they go down there. And of course he said, horny teens being teens, he's going to want to, use the dark and, and the fact that they're alone to try to get a little something out of it. And of course, like she starts like giving him head basically. And then, he gets killed. The guy gets killed from behind and she's allowed to live to come upstairs to basically get everybody spooked. So they'll start making mistakes.
Yeah.
Works perfectly. He's got it figured out exactly. Best side character for me has to be Eugene.
Oh yes. 100%.
Like just the intro scene where you like Leslie has to go out and dig him up from his his deprivation tank that he's been in, and it's like he's like what are you doing, old timer? And like he's barely there, and he's like, what time is it? And he's like 6, and he's like, is it Tuesday? And he's like, Tuesday. He's like, man, this is Thursday. You've been down there for days. Come on, get out of there.
Good God.
And just the way that Scott Wilson, I believe is the actor's name, like was able when he comes out, he's like hobbling because it's like you can tell like his muscles ain't been used for a few days. While he's acting. Like I love it. It's just great. What is the best slasher movie reference to you in this movie?
God, there was so fucking many of them. Well, okay. I'm going to go with the one I remember because I recognized Kane Hodder, and that was the Nightmare on Elm Street house. Because I was like, is that the house? I wasn't sure that was the house.
I don't know if it's the exact house from the first movie, but it was close enough approximation that it served the purpose.
Yeah, so that was it for me. Well, and I guess the hardest part was that it was Kane Hodder.
Yeah, and it's like you see Kane Hodder and you're like, okay, they got both the actors for Jason and Freddy to be in this movie. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
That was a good one to me just because it's so quick as the little girl's jumping rope in the background because it was perfectly imitating.
And you knew exactly what it was when you saw it too.
Best, I'm gonna give this award for the best slasher and final girl bonding scene because we'll never get another one of these again. When Leslie was crying and Taylor's comforting him, like it's so sweet and so fucked up when you realize that he knew she was the final girl, and it was like, and you're wondering, and it makes you wonder when you know that, go back and rewatch it because I knew this, like watching that scene, it's like, does he really he really respects her, but at the same time he's getting ready to torture the fuck out of her. Like, it's so weird and fucked up. Because he compliments her. He tells her constantly how good of it throughout the movie when she says something, he's like, good. He's like, brilliant. You figured it out. Like, because she guesses where he's going with his logic. And he's actually enthused by the fact that she's doing that.
He's like, she gets me. He was thinking that was going to be his wife, just like Eugene had a wife, If you survive this, bitch, I'm going to marry you.
What did you think about Zelda Rubinstein as the Doom Prophet in this? Because she's clearly the one and only Doom Prophet.
Definitely the annoying Doom Prophet. I was, it was very cliche to see her. I know that this film had a lot of references, and that was a good reference to have. I was just like, whatever.
She adds to the annoying part of the Doom Prophet just with her voice. I hate to say that because,
she does.
But it adds. I'm going to give an honorary Dr. Loomis award to Doc Holleran because that's what he is. I mean, and dumbest moment in this one. I don't feel like there is a lot of dumb moments in this because like the teenagers acted stupid. They're being so well manipulated by Leslie. They don't really have a choice. He is so smart, going back to what you said, that he figures out what their motives are, how their reactions are going to be, that they have no options. Like he knows what they're going to do before they do it. The one dumb moment, and that's another thing that he gets credit for because he's so smart, is Taylor, after knowing everything that he's about to do, still involves herself in the final fight with him when she could have he gave her the option. He said, you can leave, but he knew she wouldn't. Yeah.
I mean, and it worked out obviously for the film. I think the best thing she could have done, probably more lives would have gotten saved if she had been like, hey, I'm going to the police. But could she go to the police and saying, hey, I'm filming a documentary on a serial killer, up and coming serial killer?
She didn't really have any proof either until to the scene where the librarian was killed, because that was the actual first death that Leslie did. I mean, other than that, he talked a good game, but he hadn't actually done anything at that point.
I don't know.
But she was expertly manipulated because he knew he knew enough about her that she would not leave, and he gave her multiple tests at the beginning of the movie too, and I think that goes into it. I mean, that's another dumb moment you can probably say is her going against his wishes and like involving herself directly with the quote unquote final girl that Leslie had chosen, but that was a test. He wanted to see if she would bite morally on that one, and like she did, and so he knew he had her at that point. Which, I mean, it works. I mean, for the movie so well, showing just how much he knew like about his survivor girl, that like it's like, okay, I know what she's going to do. And another thing that they did at the end of it that you appreciate is that she tries to use the information he gave her against him, but he swapped things on her, and she's like, he knew we was going to do this. And so he told him that he was going to put certain things in certain areas. And when they go to do that, they're not there anymore.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking when he was describing the final girl, when he was, exactly what I said, describing, was he describing her? I'm trying to piece if he was. Obviously virginal he was.
he was pretty much describing her, and she didn't realize it. And I don't know if she almost feels like it. I feel like whenever rewatching this, because I've saw it a couple times now, watching her in that scene where she's, hearing him describe that, there's a flush in her face, like whenever he mentions the virginal part, like she's almost giving herself away, but at the same time, she's disconnected enough through the lens of the documentary portion of what she's trying to do that she doesn't admit that it could be her.
Yeah. So
that's kind of the way they worked it in there, but it all worked out. So great movie. Highly recommend it to people.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're a fan of slasher movies, because you'll get the references, you'll get what they're trying to do with it. And I love the way that it knows the genre inside and out.
Yeah, you don't want to pass on this one for sure. I mean, like, even if you don't love it, it definitely has good points. There's a lot of good references, a lot to learn for sure. I mean, if you want to understand the horror genre a little bit more, this is definitely the slasher genre. This is definitely the movie you want to watch to kind of get those key points. Yes, Scream can give it to you, but this really kind of breaks it down.
It does it I like it in a better way, because the Scream movies make it as a commentary from the slasher viewer's point of view. But this is like if you lived in that universe, it gives it from that point of view, which is an interesting twist on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And something I forgot is that Robert Englund actually does a really good job acting in this movie. I mean, he's not playing an offshoot of Freddy in this.
Yeah, no, he's not. And that's one thing I saw. So when I saw the punch hole death, I think this is what I was kind of watching, is I guess Robert Englund was quite the mentor on this set and kind of showing him this is how you would slash, this is how you would kill. So he was like giving tips to the guy playing Leslie.
So he was the Eugene in the real life for the actor.
Yeah,
okay.
They said he was a fucking delight to work with. And I was like, that is just so refreshing to hear. Freddy Krueger is amazing to work with.
Pretty much everybody who's ever worked with him says that. Like, despite the fact that he, plays this horrific character, that he's like one of the sweetest people you'll ever like actually get the chance to work with or meet whenever it comes to that.
Yeah. So I think I love that.
Plugs, the boys still on Leanne to it? Are they still doing their thing?
Leanne to it is still a thing every Sunday night, unless they decide to take a little breaky break, which whatever. Hey, we all do. But they are live. They list their phone number if you want to call in, make a comment, tell them they're stupid, tell Noah to leave his wife alone. I
need to remember to do that sometime and call in and, like, what we discussed or whatever, just bringing up, how conservatives are kind of like drop the ball when it comes to, like, allowing, everybody complains about the agendas put in the movies from the left side of the political aisle, but it's because conservatives just feel like all this stuff is baby shit that, doesn't need to be focused on. And that's why they've lost all this stuff. I think that'd be a good point for them to bring up.
Oh, definitely. So, yeah, you guys, you can do that. You can listen to them live. If you don't catch them live, you can listen to them the next day. But, yeah, usually every Sunday night, West Coast time, 8 p.m.-ish, they're on. So, yeah, that's still a thing.
What about the Hot Mess? Is that still on the back burner because of life, as it were?
Yes, there's a lot of material to be discussed that I've been talking to Candy about. So we will be getting her on soon. I don't know if I'm going to get her on before our epic girls trip we have coming up planned. I am trying to get her on prior to that. But she's just got a lot of awesome things going on. She's had her own few trips to Disney already, which has been kind of, she had a breakup. So it's been kind of therapeutic for her. But she also got this gig as a medic out in Florida to do one of the cheer competitions out there. And they are sending her to Disney World. For free.
Pretty nice.
She's getting paid to do that. And so, I'm pretty sure we'll be discussing that. So, yes, Hot Mess Express eventually is going to come back into town. We don't have a date. We're working the details. It won't be consistent, not like Death Holler is. So.
And with that, everybody, peace be with you.
And with your spirit.